Definitely a lot of songwriting. I mean, when you're locked up and you got a studio that's in your house and people across the globe that are like, okay, let's do something, send me something, it's easy to do.
Our podcast is all about you, your journey in music, and how you got to where you are now.
Okay.
Very cool. So tell me where were you born and raised?
I was born in Eau Claire, Wisconsin.
Okay. What was that like?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I was only there for less than a year, so I'm not sure my memory goes quite that far back.
Where'd you move from, Eau Claire?
I grew up in Southern California, so right outside of LA. I was a Valley girl, actually. So
Really? Cool.
yeah.
That's where I was originally from, Southern California. Not from the Valley, but San Diego.
Okay. No, San Diego is much cooler. I think the Valley's, is smoggy.
What was it like growing up in the Valley? I'm sure, I mean, you have a bunch of entertainment around you. The industry is kind of there.
Yeah, I mean, when I think about it, at the time it didn't seem like anything because you grow up and it's the way it is. But at the time it was interesting because a lot of my friends in, elementary school and then middle school or whatever we called it back then, were doing commercials on the side. And, numerous friends were always on various shoots.
Mhm.
And it was so common that I didn't even think about it. And, now I think back about it as like, oh yeah, I mean, because of the industry and how much was really being shot there. I think now it's probably a little bit more spread out around the country. But at the time when I was growing up, LA was kind of the only place that any film was really being done. Film commercials, whatever was being done.
Mhm.
And so it was definitely ingrained in you. And then when you leave that area of the country, you're like, oh, there's something more than entertainment. I didn't know that.
Sure. Well, you're a filmmaker as well, right?
I'm a filmmaker, so a new filmmaker. So I've just finished my first 2D animation feature film. So it's like 88 minutes. It was a project that I've started about 4 years ago.
Okay.
Storyboards and hand drawings and a script and then it was supposed to be finished about a year and a half ago, and then the pandemic hit.
Mhm.
It a number of problems. One is that the animators that I originally had selected figured out this was too big of a project for them, and that became really obvious very quickly.
Mhm.
And then when I switched animators, exactly when I switched, the pandemic hit. So everything was full stop.
Sure.
But then we picked back up speed, and now it's done and it's out shopping. So
Amazing. And it's at some award shows, correct? Or like awards?
So right now we've got about 25, 26 awards so far. It started
Congratulations.
yes, thank you. Started out just with the screenplay and the trailer and the music because obviously I didn't have a movie to show them. But now I've just been able to submit it to film festivals for the entire movie, and we've just gotten we were finalists at a film festival. I just got told recently and nominated in a couple others. So yeah, it's going in a positive direction.
That's amazing. Well, how did you get into music?
Well, I mean, I've sort of always been in music. I started out playing the clarinet and when I was in elementary school, when I was really teeny, where when I was walking to school, I'll tell you that clarinet, and it's funny when I look at it now because it's just like a little, little box, right? But the student clarinets, when you're only, 6 years old, you're like this trying to watch.
Yeah.
It's like super heavy. And
Sure.
it makes me laugh now when I pick it up and I'm like, I can't believe I thought that was so heavy, but I did because, I was always envious. The flute players had the little teeny boxes and they were so nice and light.
Mhm.
I remember saying to my teacher, I really wanted to play the flute. And she's like, no, we already have too many flute players. You have to play clarinet. I was like,
Oh.
So it started out in bands and did
Okay.
band and orchestra, and then sort of traversed myself into musical theater. And, I fell in love with the whole chorus and choir and theater, and we left my poor little clarinet in the closet and kind of moved on. And
How long did you play clarinet for? Was that all the way up through high school?
yeah, it was up through the beginning of high school. So I guess I played solid for 7 or 8 years.
Wow.
And yeah, then when I fell in love with the whole singing aspect, I joined this really, really bad cover band. Like, we were really bad, but we had this following. And let me tell you, when I say we were a bad cover band, we really sucked. And yet we would pack bars and places. It just goes to show how forgiving people are when you play cover music. And
Right.
So we had a lot of fun. I did that while I was working full time, and it was kind of like my music outlet. And it wasn't until 2008 I decided to jump into an original project. So that's when I really say my music career began.
Okay. And have you been in the same band ever since? Was that Side Effects?
Well, I like to say Side Effects is a collection of musicians that I have, because I tour around the globe. And as you know, touring with a bunch of musicians is very expensive, and
Yeah.
it's not a great proposition unless you're like, well, even the big stars that have enough money to ship everybody, they even use local musicians as well. It's just it's a much more effective way, and it's actually more fun to interact. So I have a collection of people in various countries that I work with on a regular basis when I tour there. And so I've got a bunch of guys in LA, for example, when I go out there, a bunch of guys in New York, a bunch of guys here in Miami, and then in Europe, and they're kind of sprinkled between Spain, Croatia, and Germany, and the UK.
Wow.
Yeah.
And do you tour under your name, or do you tour under Side Effects?
I tour under both. So people probably know my name, but I always like include the whole Side Effects thing, because I want everybody to feel like they're included in the whole performance and what we're doing. Because it's a team effort, and the minute you don't think it's a team effort, then you're in the wrong business, because without really quality musicians behind you, supporting you, and touring with you, it's a lonely job, and it's not, and you don't sound as good. Like, if you really think you're doing this on your own, you're wrong. You're just not doing it on your own.
When did you, you said you're in a cover band for a while. When did you decide to start playing original music?
It was inspired by a family member who was having some serious medical cancer, issues, having to go in the hospital. And I ended up writing a song that weekend when he went in. And I had so much fun with that concept and how it would allow me to put my feelings out in a totally different way. Got together with my guitar player at the time. We put some melodies behind it and some bass rhythms. And then I was like, I want to take this into studio. I had never been into a studio before. And I took it in there, and it was just like rent the studio for 4 hours kind of thing. We just kind of goofed off, and there was just a sound engineer who, just recorded it. There was no production whatsoever. And the guy pulled me aside afterwards. He says, I think you have some here, but I think you want to actually find a producer. And, at the time I really didn't understand what a producer's role was. And he gave me this guy's name that I knew, and I talked to him, and I was like, wow, this guy seems to know what he's doing, and recorded my first album with an actual producer. And I got hooked. I was like super hooked. I was like, this studio thing, this writing songs, this, I'm there. I'm in heaven. So now, 400 or 500 songs later, I think little addiction going on, but you know, maybe I'll get it fixed one day.
That's awesome. When was the first time that you played, or do you remember playing your own songs in front of people? And how much different was that than the covers?
You know, it's the first time I took after we finished the album, I went on tour, and I went on
Wow.
tour. I mean, I did the whole thing. I did the big bus, and it was super expensive, but it was like I got a really good 4-year music education in one tour, and we were gone for I guess 6 weeks or 4 weeks. Went all the way almost across the country. I mean, we made it to like Texas, and then we went up through Nebraska, and then over Ohio and back to the East Coast. And so it was we did get to go to about 12 different VA hospitals, and that was really fun in between, you know, bar gigs and things. Um, you know, you learn a lot more when you're not static. So you have to learn how to adapt. Every venue has different things. And, you know, you bring your stuff to accommodate that, but, you know, things happen. You know, we got stuck in New Orleans, the bus turned, you know, shallow. And so we got literally stuck in the mud.
Oh my gosh.
And so I said, okay, well, he gets a tow truck or whatever to get out of the bus. Just grab whatever you can and we'll walk to our gig. So we went from, you know, a bunch of electric guitars to a completely acoustic set, and it ended up great. But those are the kinds of things that you really learn how to address when you're on the road, and how to deal with different venue managers and owners who have their own specifics, what they want you to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, nobody's heard your stuff. So, you know, you have to make it interesting. You don't know, there's no reason why New Orleans would like my music better than Ohio. And you could definitely feel that. There were definitely places that we were a really good fit for, and places that we were definitely not a good fit for. It wasn't the right music. At the time, I was not doing dance music. I was doing more of I would say, soft rock, borderline rock stuff, because I had these two electric guitar players who were just great guitar players, but it definitely gave you this more rock feel. And some of the places, you know, loved that sound, and then the others were like, yeah, we don't do rock here, you know. So but you learn that. And so the first album out was definitely a combination of the learning experience, also kind of get a feel for what people wanted to hear from me as a new artist, and then what I wanted to hear. And what I found after the first album was I really didn't want to do rock. I mean, I wasn't really a rock person. I like rock music, but that's not who I wanted to be. So I kept moving myself away from rock. The second album was a lot more adult contemporary than rock. And then by the time I hit the third album, I'd gone into dance, and I just kept going the dance route until I got to a very comfortable electronic place.
Were you just progressing as an artist, or why did you eventually hit to dance?
I was definitely progressing as an artist, and I was definitely trying to find the right producer that understood the sound I wanted. You know, what I found at the beginning was I knew a lot of producers that knew pop. They knew pop music. They didn't want to go pop. And a lot of people, you know, they look at me, they're, oh, you must be either a country, you know, musician, or you're a pop musician. I'm like, well, I'm not. You know, I know I have blonde hair, but I'm not either one of those. So it was hard to get people to get away from the stereotype of blonde hair and listen to what I was trying to do musically. And so that took a couple of albums to get there. But then I kind of found my niche, and I also started hanging out with the right electronic artists and producers. And that was the other part, is I just didn't have that network. Didn't know where to go for that network until I was, you know, midway into it.
What was there, like a person you met, or like a specific moment that?
I had a gentleman who reached out to me, and I guess he had been watching me for quite a while. And he said, "Hey, you want to? I'm over here in the UK, and I think you do really well in Europe, and I want to manage you." And I said, "Really?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Okay." And so he kind of he started that platform, and then uh, while he wasn't in electronic music, he certainly had a passion for it. And together, he and I just kept going deeper and deeper into that world in the European electronic scene. And then it sort of started these different introductions. So I really give him a credit that he got me pointed into the direction I wanted to go to.
Mm-hmm.
But we were both, newbies into that world. But it was a fun journey that we took.
Mm-hmm. And you've had 2 songs on the Billboard 20.
Yep, 2 songs. One was called "Not Into You," and the one that followed that was called "Now You're Mine." It was a great run, and it was funny. Somebody just sent me. They had looked me up on Billboard Charts, and I guess there's a whole listing of how many weeks I was on different positions, and it was fun to do that nostalgia back to see how it's going. Of course, the Billboard Charts are not up yet because of COVID. They haven't
Right.
started that. But it's been interesting to watch electronic music because it used to be its own little side niche, and we didn't really let anybody in it. And
Mm-hmm.
then you saw everyone started mixing that electronic component into their own songs.
Mm-hmm.
So it sort of is it's diluted a little bit, right? So it's interesting. I mean, I love the combination of different things together anyway. But it seemed like it took people a while to figure out, hey, it could be cool if you add some house into that. And I mean, it's not a new concept if you look at Everything But the Girl, that original song versus the remix. I mean, the original song did nothing, and then they remixed it, and it's like, it's still played today. But
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like people have memory loss. They forget about it, and then, oh, let's recycle it. We can do it all again. So,
Yeah, a lot of artists are going in that electronic realm. I think people are blending it a lot more now than ever.
yes. Yeah, and the next thing I see coming, I mean, it's already started, is adding those brass instruments. I mean, I have a couple songs that I've gotten a couple of my musician friends to perform on, but you add a trumpet, a trombone, or a sax to electronic music. You add an acoustic guitar. It's just amazing sounding. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I have one song where my friend, she's just this. She plays the gambas and uh, Latin percussion like nobody's business, and so she did this one song for me, and it still house, but it's like a Latin house, and it just has this different vibe just by the Latin percussion she added. So when you experiment, you just never know what you're gonna find.
That's awesome. And no, I'm curious, where were you when you're talking about your film that you put out? But where were you at as far as like your music went when this whole pandemic hit? Like, were you planning on a tour? Were you working on a record?
Well, I was supposed to be on tour, but obviously all of that got canceled. Music wise, I ended up writing a ton of music during the pandemic. I think a lot of people did, but I had to finish up writing for the children's album. I wanted to launch that before the movie. I had to finish writing all of the music for the soundtrack for the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then I get inspired, and I think I released two, maybe 4 or 5 songs during the pandemic of just electronic music,
Mm-hmm.
and and some of them were like just after. So definitely a lot of songwriting. I mean, when you're locked up and you got a studio that's in your house and people across the globe that are like, okay, let's do something, send me something, it's easy to do.
Uh-huh. You wrote a kids record?
I have a couple of children's albums. One of them is called Connecting to Animals. So I released that in December, or no, January, I think it is. I'm getting them all mixed up. It's got kind of a calypso, some reggae feel to it. I had a number of guest artists that did the vocals on, because after a while people are just, they're going to get bored with my voice. So I mixed it up a little bit with other vocalists, and it's just some positive messages about how important, if we care about our animals and our seas, we end up being our own environmentally friendly species. Because if you care about animals, you're going to care about what you put into the ocean, what you put on the floor, what you put in, how you're recycling, how you're not. And that was kind of my message, is if you really think about it, you can all be a part of cleaning and taking care of things. And it's geared towards, the same age as the books that I've written. So 4 to 9 year olds, not complicated messages, just simple messages, but also fun. I mean, I wanted kids love to dance. I wanted the melodies to be something they could sing along after hearing it once, which I did that little test with some kids, and they were able to do it. I wanted them to feel happy. I didn't want a bunch of sad songs. I didn't want songs. I wanted them to be able to escape. And so that's, it's a 9-track album, but it's, fun music.
I love that. And what do you've been releasing songs this year, correct? I mean, tell me about what you have going on now.
So I released one in February, Show Me You Feel. So typical house, and it's got some remixes to it, and did a music video with doing some aerial dancing. I like to do that on the side. And then this next song, which is not officially released, although it's already on the charts and already gotten in-store spins, it releases the 26th. It's called Don't Give Me No. And it's a much moodier house song for me. It's very moody, I should say. And they told me yesterday, which was really fun. In 1 week, it got 63,000 spins. So I was like,
wow.
Okay, that's all right.
That's huge. Congratulations.
So, it should be debuting. I think it debuts on number 41 on the overall charts on All Access. So it's going to be fun to see how this one turns out.
That is incredible. Congratulations on that. And other music coming out as well?
I did just release my first rap song.
What was that like?
Well, I don't rap. I had a rapper do it for me, but
okay,
do the vocals for me. I actually sent him over the demo, me rapping, which just to get the timing right. Which when I played it back, I was laughing because I just don't have that. I just don't have a rap voice at all. But it was pretty fun to write it. I wasn't sure how that would turn out, but I had a last minute spot in the movie that I wanted to add just a short 2-minute piece to, and so I was like, what would sound good is right there. So that one just came out on Friday. You can see it on Spotify. It's called Follow Me. But that's under, the artist is Superpowers, which is my book series and my movie. So
very cool. And thank you so much, Kim, for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's been great fun. Thank you.
I do have one more question before I let you go. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
My advice is keep it going. Even when people say, oh, you shouldn't be doing this, it's too expensive, it's a waste of your time, don't listen. Just keep going. Everybody's got a voice. Everybody's got a certain artistry and creativeness to them that they just keep going. Just keep going. And when you fall down, which you will, that's all right. Learn from it. Brush yourself off. Just keep going.